Okay, hello. I'm doing a video about the number 3 right now. So what I like to do is draw these numbers and it helps me explain them. Drawing helps me explain things. The first thing is that all numbers are the number 1. They're divided by 1 and multiplied by 1 at the same time. It's like everything starts with 1 and creation is making that more complex. Basically, to create anything is to change the number 1 somehow and present it in a new form. So it's like with the numbers, it's multiplying and dividing. Okay, I'm gonna draw. We'll start drawing. Okay, so there's 3 points. The thing is, there's multiple ways to draw these numbers. Even the number 1, there's 3 ways that I draw it. I use either a point or a circle to represent 1, so 3 points is the number 3. So there's the 3 points in the circle. I made the circle a little bigger than the 3 was at first. So I moved the points out. So there's the basic shape of the number 3. I also like with the odd numbers to make a point in the middle to represent how it is the number 1 and how there's a center. So with each number, it gets more and more ways to draw it. With the even numbers, there's no point in the middle because there's a line that crosses through the middle. So the character of the number 3 is kind of like movement. There starts to be movement and growth. And it's still orderly. It's pretty balanced. It's actually, in a way, it's, well, I don't know. I was going to say it's a little more balanced than the number 2. It's the character though. It's like the number two, there's motion, and it's like back and forth. Like there's a line and it goes straight through the middle, and it's kind of like it emphasizes the 2 points that are on opposite sides. And that's kind of like when there's balance, then the motion can kind of rest in the middle, and it can kind of return to being a circle, and it's like a statement about polarity. And there is balance, only there can also be like, if for some reason one of the points is more emphasized, then it can really be unbalanced. It never stays that way though. Something always happens to return it. I kind of feel like one of those things that can happen is that the number three happens. I like thinking about numbers like as like one way to describe how they are is like it's each point is a person sitting in a circle. And the same with numbers. I think that people, like, we're all one, we're all the same. We can choose to see ourselves as individuals, or we can choose to see ourselves as part of a whole. So like if there were three people sitting in this circle, whether it was like sitting on the ground or like around a table or something, or even it could be like a relationship with three people, like a family or friends or whatever, like in that situation where there's three people, there's balance in the sense that there's more of the circle being included. There's more of the circle being represented. And it's pretty stable. There's motion. It's like if I was sitting here with three people, like someone there and someone there, I could look back and forth and back and forth. Only it's like if there was like any sort of healthy relationship going on, then it would be really easy to include everyone. It seems to me like it would be pretty difficult to exclude one of these people and keep having like a conversation like this and be like, oh, this person's not here, like, or like if there's a disagreement for like one person to keep it to themselves, or for the two people to not understand if they're saying something and kind of like ignore them and move on or try to move on or whatever. The number three, I feel like, is a pretty harmonious number. It represents motion. It's kind of like, as far as numbers go in an existential sense, like the number one, it could be like every single possibility ever, and it could also be like the most simple thing. The number two, the possibility of like multiple people or multiple ideas or whatever, multiple ones, like it's there, it has come into like being, only it's kind of like the number two can be very, very intensely focused on like its relationship between like the 2 points. And it's kind of like looking in a mirror. It can kind of go back and forth and back and forth to the point where there's not necessarily an emphasis on anything besides that relationship. There can be, only it doesn't really have to exist. The number two is pretty simple, and it can revert back to the number one. I mean, the 2 points, because they're so obvious to each other, they can choose to see each other as one. So they could like, neutralize or harmoniously choose to like be the same, and then it's the number one basically. The number three is kind of like there's momentum starting to be more, for there to be like growth. And it's dynamic in that sense, and yet it's not really like it's in a hurry to change, only it's very like aware of change, like change is possible. It knows like if there's 1 and 2 and now there's 3, then like it logically follows that, you know, there could be more and more numbers. 3 is the highest odd number that cannot be drawn as a star. That's kind of significant because at some point when the drawings start, the stars, I feel like that kind of affects and speaks to the personality of shapes. I kind of like to think of the number 3 as like, if, like back to the sitting in a circle thing, like if there were 3 mirrors that were at even points 120 degrees around the circle from each other, so it's like an equilateral triangle. If they all had like a mirror that was pointing directly at the center of the circle, and one of them shined a beam of light to one of the other ones, then it would like reflect off that one and go to that one, and it would keep going around the triangle. I feel like that kind of pretty much describes the number 3 to me, how it's like harmonious and inclusive. Like if something's there, it's also there. If it's like there, it's also there. And it's like yeah, that's pretty much it.